Okay, guys. So rarely do I bring clients onto the podcast slash YouTube page, and this is an instance where I'm very excited to introduce someone who I have known for a while now and does some very interesting things. And for those of you looking for unique and tax advantaged ways, and also really profitable ways to park your money, Dan's a really good guy to know because he has explored a lot of really unique and different things that you're just not going to find in online or whatever means your financial advisor is sending you. And so he's interviewed tons of people through his vehicle that we're going to talk about, and he's been doing this for a while now, and he has gone through this. He's done his own investments as well, and we're going to talk about the world of alternative investing with my wonderful guest, Dan Homeland. So, Dan, can you introduce yourself in 60 seconds or less and tell everybody about what's going on with you and what you do?
Sure, Mark. Thanks for having me here. I have been a client of yours, I think, for 5 years now, maybe a little bit more.
Like that, yeah. Wow.
So my background is that I have been interested in real estate investing for, ever as long as I can imagine. I can't tell you my story in 1 minute, but it was since I was around 10, I got interested, and then I started doing it in college. I worked at Intel as a software engineer for 12 years, and I founded the Real Estate Education Club at Intel. And in that club, we just brought in speaker after speaker after speaker. We had a meeting every single Friday at noon Pacific time. And now that I'm no longer with Intel, we're still doing that. And it's just been rebranded as the Alternative Investing Club. So it's a club that's purely educational. We do have a club fund, but it's all about education and learning from other people in order to find the most interesting strategies that are out there.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've had some really. And I know because we've had some common guests. What are some of the things that what are some big wins that you've seen some of your audience have, and what are some of the really captivating conversations you've had in this group?
Oh boy. So I actually keep a file on big wins that people in my club tell me about because, sometimes it's kind of a grind running a club and constantly going out and having speakers. We have on average 47 events per year, every single Friday. And that could be a bit of a grind. And so whenever I need a little bit of a motivational, I actually go back and refer to the document. And so I can tell you that I've had countless people call me and just say, hey, we got started with our first Airbnb home. We got started with our first rental home. And we got started with our first syndication. Those are all fairly common. There's quite a few people at Intel Corporation, at least, that are there on H-1B visas. And they have interesting situations. I had one lady who... sometimes I don't even hear from people that are in my club until, it's like 3 years later, they decide to introduce themselves. They say they've been attending every week. And I had this one lady say, I immigrated from Ethiopia 24 years ago. And because of your club, I've bought my first 7 rental homes. And it's entirely changed my life. Yeah. That's and awesome. You hear those sorts of stories and you're like, wow, it's good to make an impact, and financial education is an area that I'm passionate about. And I think that it isn't taught enough. And so finding clubs and finding educational people to be around is extremely important.
Very cool. Now, when I first met you, you were all in on real estate and only real estate. And then you kind of branched out into the alternative investment club and I know that you're still deeply into real estate. What made you branch out and think to yourself, well, first we're all about real estate, now we're going to broaden our horizons into alternative investments? What was the thought process, and what kind of new opportunities did that create?
To be honest, I was kind of focusing on real estate almost exclusively. And it was actually the people in the club that came to me. And this was probably 2022, 2023. And they came to me and they basically said, hey, Daniel, the real estate market is slowing down quite a bit. We would love to get topics other than real estate. And so it was actually the community that came to me, and I sent out a poll and found that, most of the people that were there for the education. And we'd had a lot of great education on real estate. And it's actually up on the website and up on our YouTube. You can get the last 200 or so meetings that we've had there. But they were interested in other things too. And so we started branching out into, oil wells and how to invest in those. We started branching out into different types of funds. We had one speaker come in and speak about, actually, this was a group that came and spoke about how to invest in commercial airplanes, and in particular, how to syndicate a commercial airline engine.
Wow.
Did you know that when you're sitting on, your 737 or your 747 and you look out the window and you see the engine there are investors that own fractional shares of the engine itself. And based on the amount of money that engine brings in through whatever formulation the airlines use, investors take part in, returns from flights that happen with that engine.
That's fascinating. And talk about the depreciation opportunity. No cost segregation needed. 100% of that asset now we can write off immediately. So if you're, let's say you finance it with 20% down, and you get $100,000, put $100,000 in, and let's say it's 20% down, that's $1 million write off right there.
Yeah. Equipment investing is a great way to get depreciation, as I'm sure you and your audience knows.
Yeah.
We had another guy. So we have a lot of the standard, Airbnb, short-term rentals, real estate syndications, real estate funds. I have had a lot of that. Some of the more unique things we had a group come in and talk about investing in this group had a fund, and they were well known for collecting expensive bottles of wine and whiskey. Barrels of whiskey. And so they had an entire fund based on buying it at regular rates and selling it, expensive. And, they made their entire fund out of flipping and holding wine and whiskey.
Cool.
So when you start getting into financial education, you realize that, the more you learn, the more creative you can be. And that's true with taxes too. The more you learn about your taxes, the more creatively you can save on them. So the same is true on the investing side as well. You'll find people that have interesting strategies.
That's cool. And one of the things we do is with all our clients is we try to take things a layer further every year. So let's say a client is already doing the basics. They got they're buying real estate and doing cost segs. Well, what kind of new opportunities can we create and layer on top of that maybe they didn't have enough time to explore? So it could be a little thing, like maybe this year we do Augusta rule. We rent out our primary residence to our business. Or maybe this year, so one of our clients, we had a fun conversation. This is the first time we got to do this just because we never had capacity to explore this. And we decided to dive deep into health, medical related tax strategies. We had an opportunity to create a business deduction for his wife's pregnancy. It would be like a $20,000 tax deduction against business. And we know a business deduction is far greater, more valuable than an itemized deduction. So like little things like that. It's always fun when you go further, you explore, see how far you can take these things.
Did I just hear you say there was a business deduction based on a pregnancy?
Absolutely. You got it right.
That is a strategy we haven't had in our club yet.
Yeah. So, the way it works is it's a workaround where you could create a health reimbursement account, and it only works with sole props or C corps. But essentially, as a sole prop, you can't do it to yourself, but you could hire your spouse. And even if it's your cost, your spouse has a family-related health reimbursement arrangement. It doesn't work for S corp. So it's a really cool strategy. And when you do it right, it can be a really neat way to just create some awesome tax savings.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there's a million things out there, and there's things that we may never get to, and little minutia where it's just like, first we conquer the big ticket items like the cost eggs and charitable structures and strategies and depreciation strategies and some of those 6-figure items. But then we can even dive deeper into those little things as we continue the conversations, which is really fun.
Yeah. This September, I will have been running this club almost every single Friday for the last 7 years. And it's actually kind of rare to come up with a real estate strategy that I haven't heard about. And I actually heard a unique strategy yesterday talking to somebody, and I don't fully understand it, but I would invite you to come and be part of that particular one, because basically what it was is they wanted to create tax savings in their IRA conversions. And
I know what you're talking about.
Okay. And so basically they would go out and purchase A-class property that was unlevered, no leverage on the property, but they would borrow against the IRA and then use the depreciation to greatly reduce the income in the IRA and basically create the rollover with a very minimal tax footprint. I hope I explained that, at least that's my understanding of it anyways. I'm sure there's a lot of detail.
So we had a client do it, and it eliminated like 60% of the taxes on the rollover. So like he rolled over, imagine you roll over $1 million. Usually that's taxable at $1 million, but he only paid taxes on like 400,000 of the $1 million. And then there's other strategies to mitigate the taxable income on the 1040 level. So we've seen it. Now there are some aggressive ways to do it, and some ways that are like, all right, are you comfortable with what these guys are doing? And then there are some more conservative stances to do as well. But it's a really cool strategy, and you do it with oil and gas as well. Real estate in oil and gas, we've seen people doing it. But yeah, that stuff is really interesting. We presented it with a few of our guys, our clients, and we only had one client that did it. But isn't that stuff really cool?
It is. It seems to me the larger the depreciation on the asset, the more you'd be able to minimize your tax bill. So you can go after oil wells, working interest in oil wells give great benefits, RV parks, things that give large amounts of depreciation. I want to highlight a story that you helped me with.
Nice.
When you saved me a whole bunch on my taxes. So you came into the club and gave a talk about how to offset your income using short-term rentals. And what is IRS? I'm sorry, what?
It's a beautiful strategy.
It is. What is it? IRS 469, was it? I forget.
Yep.
What's it called?
IRC 469.
IRC 469. Okay. So in my particular case, what I did is I went to two other friends of mine who are heavy multifamily investors. And we actually had been looking for a short-term rental to all buy together and just kind of call a common vacation home that we can rent out as well. So we found something in Idaho near some skiing out there, and we purchased a small property, 4 bedrooms. It was $675. And each of us contributed 1/3 to the down payment plus a little extra for an operating account. So basically, it ended up that each of us contributed $80K. And I went to the other two and I said to them, hey, I won't take a management fee. And for Airbnbs and short-term rentals, management fees can be 15 to 20% of your monthly income. And so I said to them, I won't take a management fee. We will manage it, for as long as we own it. But I want you in the operating agreement to assign to me all the depreciation. And since they were multifamily investors, they actually had plenty of depreciation. They didn't want the depreciation. So what they were giving up was not necessarily of value to them. They wanted the income. So we all split the income 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. But I don't take a fee and I took the depreciation. Well, I invited you to come over and you did a cost seg on the property. And if I remember right, the cost seg was returned $100,611. And, I only put $80K in.
That's pretty nice.
So, yeah. Yeah, and it was a first-year deduction too, and so we walked into that getting the nice tax deduction, a property, and a vacation house.
Yeah, so to the audience listening, there's a little more to it in the technical areas. So make sure you're working with an advisor on it. But there's a lot of flexibility in the tax laws that relates to partnerships, and there's something called special partnership allocations, where if the right circumstances align and it has to have economic substance, there are ways where we can shift certain items on the income statement to different members. And this was an instance where Dan was doing all of the oversight and management. So he was doing all the sweat equity and putting all the work in, and he was able to receive all the benefits of the cost segregation study, which was huge. Besides the fact now, and not only that, but the other members didn't even need the depreciation. And even if they had it, they didn't materially participate, not as valuable. So there are some times where the stars align properly and we can create these huge, gigantic tax wins for everyone involved. That was one of them.
Yep.
That was a good one.
Yep.
You know, in the alter, so it's like there's so much cool stuff out there. There's like like you said, the whiskey. There's the thing that and the wine, and you can rent out. You know, there's so many other ways that people are investing alternatively and also getting tax benefits, like investing into things like ATM machines and car washes that give you giant chunks of depreciation, which are even more these days. What I'm wondering here is, you showed us some really cool stuff, but what I'm also wondering, and we've seen this, what are some things that have come across your table where you're like, I'm not so sure about this. This is a little funky.
Yeah. So we always screen the people to come in and present. And, when we give a standard disclaimer, this is a forum for us to learn from them. We're not, representing that they have a great strategy or that you should even participate in it. It's an educational forum. I mean, we've been pretty lucky in that we did have some Bitcoin funds that came in, and it was kind of a sad story. We had a Bitcoin fund that came in and was giving great returns, and it worked for a little while. And then when it didn't work, the owner operator of the fund apparently fled the country.
That's not good.
So, no, it's not good. No. And I think it's actually a well-known incident, at least within some of the private investing community, because he raised, I think, over $120 million. So it was a huge fund.
Wow.
And our members, were putting in, I think, 25 to 50K, that sort of thing. And to a certain extent, there are strategies that are out there that will work, and there are ones that won't work. But the biggest determinative factor is really the operator, the person who's working it. And that's the thing you have to be, do the most due diligence on, because a great operator can make a ho-hum, property in a ho-hum area do okay, but a poor operator will tank the best property in the best location. And that's definitely one lesson we've taken away.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine, and we've done some projects together, and he had a whole speech on that. And it is Jeremiah Boucher. I'm not sure you ever met Jeremiah. Good guy.
He's been a speaker at the club.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and he said he had a whole speech about how it's not about the horses, it's about the jockey, right? It's the person running this that you're putting your money on here, and in a lot of times what we found in many relationships, it's like it is the vehicle, while important, is also like, how do you feel about the actual person here? One of the things you were saying earlier about you had these real estate investor groups of people, and they actually kind of guided you towards these other investment vehicles as well. And we've seen the same thing with our clients, where we start off, we were purely focused on real estate, but what I found was that these real estate investor clients of ours had other income sources, and some of them were burning out as real estate investors. They're like, dude, I don't have real estate professional tax status anymore. What can I do? Or I can't buy another property. I'm exhausted. Like, my wife's pregnant, and there's no good deals. Like, this
I can identify with that somewhat.
Never heard about that. And like, what I realized was, if I only put myself in the real estate box as a tax advisor, I would be underserving these guys, because there's a whole other world of stuff out there that also is in the best interest of our clients. So one of the first things that we saw that was like an immediate hit with our clients was oil and gas, because it's truly passive. You don't have to do any management. You get quarterly distributions. Hopefully you get an immediate tax deduction. And as bonus, especially as bonus was phasing out and cost segs were looking a lot less attractive, this was like a really exciting and huge win for our clients.
Well, and the biggest advantage to the oil wells is that it'll offset your W-2 income.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to have real estate professional status. So somebody who works full time, can offset their income with it.
Yeah. And just like real estate, you have paper losses with oil and gas because the depletion deduction. So when the money starts coming in, you're offsetting a chunk of that as well. So less money is being taxed and actually hits your account. So that's really cool stuff. And I'm also wondering here, like, what other things are you seeing people who are real estate minded and who maybe started this journey with the interest in real estate? What are some other things that you find them really taking interest in that is along this, that taps into those guys who are interested in the financial freedom, the passive income, the wealth building, and the equity that comes with real estate? What other things are they really interested in?
Well, okay. So when we bring speakers into the Alternative Investing Club, we bring them in one of three ways. The first way is purely educational talk. The second way is a pitch talk. And the third way is through if our club fund is going to raise money for their project. And bringing people in those combinations has brought up a number of interesting people that have strategies. And what I've noticed, especially while the real estate market tightened after interest rates went up back in the pandemic, a lot of people that I knew that were just doing like bread and butter multifamily value add started diversifying the strategies that they were using. Some people decided, hey, I'm going to start operating instead of purchasing equity in multifamily deals, I'm going to start purchasing the debt. And so their strategy was that I want to be more protected and more conservative because, when a property is sold, the equity holders are the last ones to get paid back. The debt holders are the very first ones to get paid back. The bank gets paid back first. Any secondary liens or mortgages get paid back second. Then there's perhaps a mezzanine layer, and then there's the equity layers, common and then preferred. And so there's a certain order, and you can change the order in which you're investing in the capital stack. Another thing that I saw people do was to diversify into not just properties, but properties that have businesses on top of them. You already mentioned car washes. Car washes became really popular because not only do you own the land, you own a business that's on top of it. And it's not just renting the land that is your business plan. It is, the car wash itself, which is a higher grossing than probably the land is by itself, or the property is by itself. So I saw a lot of diversification, and we saw a lot of new interesting fund strategies. Let me tell you about one that I like currently, because it's actually very altruistic as well. But you have to be very careful and do your due diligence and find people that have a track record doing that. And that is there's a group called there's OCG Management, and YRefi is the other group that is doing this. And basically what they're doing is they are advertising on they'll hire a marketing agency that will advertise online to find people that are in medical debt. And so they'll specifically advertise themselves to veterans, to first responders, people who might have been injured in the line of duty and are, paying off their medical bills on their credit card and spending 30% interest on their credit card rates. And they're in a mountain of debt that they will never, ever climb out of. And what they do is they go and negotiate specifically for the non-performing medical debt loans, and they will purchase those loans. And then the group that purchases them, they're mainly lawyers that know the credit laws very well, and they'll go through and verify, are all the Fair Credit practices being followed in the administration of this loan? And if it's not being followed, they can actually take it to court and invalidate a large amount of the debt. So what they do is they buy the debt, and then they go bring it to court, invalidate a lot of it if it wasn't fairly practiced. And that invalidation creates room to both restructure the debt with the first responder or veteran, meaning that rather than a 30% interest rate, this OCG Management, for instance, usually has around a 5% interest rate afterwards and a 2-year fixed payoff period. So it goes from open-ended at 30% to much more manageable. And there are a lot of details in here. And then that debt invalidation also gives room to pay the investor a good amount of return back. And so what they do is they go out and they purchase these non-performing loans. They restructure it, helping the veteran, helping the first responder to get out of debt, and at the same time giving a good return to investors. And so I love that story. Y Refi, I believe, does the same strategy, but instead of medical debt, they do student loan debt, and it's
cool.
a similar strategy. And there's a big demand. There's lots of people in medical debt's the number one cause of bankruptcy in the U.S. And there's certainly no shortage of people with student loans nowadays. So it's a good business. Yeah, and it's helping people.
There is that's really interesting. And speaking of student loan debt, there's a change. I'm going to get a little off topic, but this is really cool for you guys. There's the Trump tax account where you can put in $5,000 a year now, and if your child is just born, is $1,000. And it'll grow and compound tax deferred. And I see this as a really cool college financing strategy because it's more versatile than the 529. And when you take so it'll grow and compound tax deferred. And when the child they don't just have to spend it on their college, because let's face it, college isn't for everyone. And finally, we see an account that recognizes this a little better. So the child can spend it on starting a new business, purchasing a home, or college. And when the money is taken out for those qualified expenses, it's taxed at the child's capital gain rate. So not the child's ordinary income rate like you would see in IRA, but the capital gain rate. And if they're over 18 and there's no kiddie tax, which they most likely will when they incur these costs, good chance they're in the $0 cap gain bracket. We can spread it out and make that happen. How stinking cool is that?
Makes me wish I hadn't put as much into my 529.
Yeah, oh, by the way, because you're a client, I just scheduled it. You haven't seen the invite yet, but we are doing an advanced college planning strategy session. We have a resource that'll help us do it. And there are, just like the tax code is very robust and there's all sorts of ways to win the tax game, same thing with the FASBA system. There's all sorts of ways to win the FASBA system and get more aid and reduce tuition. So there's just so much cool stuff out there. So now I'm wondering, so, and you yourself as a real estate investor, you've done a lot of multifamily. You've had a lot of partnerships. What would you say over the past, to anyone listening, what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned over the past 5 years through tremendous changes in the economic environment and interest rates and the real estate market? What are some of the big things you learned, and how is that impacting where you're headed as far as next steps?
A couple of things. First of all, and this is the reason why I run the Alternative Investing Club. Just being a lifelong learner is an important strategy, and just constantly being interested in what other people are doing and what other people have to say. I've run into a lot of real estate investors who know their one thing very well, and that's good, but it can also be somewhat limiting. I've seen people continue doing multifamily after multifamily didn't make sense in the economy. And so being able to learn and change and adapt, I think, is a key thing for investors. One of the other things that I've really noticed is that whenever you go and see a real estate presentation or a new commercial real estate deal, everybody always has wonderful communication and conservative underwriting, and frankly, I think that in most cases they do. They're coming at it with good faith effort, but once the deal starts, maybe that communication wasn't as good as it was originally intended to be, or you miss a little bit of a month of communication, 2 months of communication. You have investors that are wondering what's going on. It's really important to, and in particular, I like to start very small with an operator, see how they go. I don't invest with the same operator twice in 1 year. I always put one investment with them and just see how they do for a year and what their communication style is like. Are their returns on time? Is it something I can actually, project in a spreadsheet versus, oh, look, an email came today. So your communication style, the communication style of the people you're investing with is pivotal, key.
Yeah,
one of the other things. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying.
I can probably
I've
keep
seen
going.
I've heard from other very similar stories from our clients who, and it's very easy as an audience member. I know firsthand to see those numbers and be like, dude, how can you not do this? Look at those numbers. Well, I get, those graphs and charts, as fancy as they are not, those are not promises. Those are not set in stone. There is a possibility that they don't go, that doesn't happen. And it's very easy to fall victim of that if you're an inexperienced investor. What are some other things then?
I was going to say, with interest rates the way they are, the importance of having fixed rate debt, in a lot of different strategies that can be very useful. One of the other novel strategies, and this is one of the ways that I started changing in my investment, was I started looking specifically for real estate deals where there was a partnership with a local municipality that gave a tax deduction. So, for instance, a lot of times, if you have a certain number of either 25 or 50% of your units dedicated to area media income people that are below area media income, municipalities will give you a tax deduction for that. Now, you might be causing yourself more work by doing that, or depending on how it works out. In our particular case, we weren't, and we were partnering with the city of Austin and ended up getting a very large tax break on a really beautiful looking property because we worked with the municipality. We actually got it was actually property tax free for a period of 99 years, and we could resell it with the next buyer taking it 85% tax free. So our whole business plan was not necessarily, we were doing a light renovation on it. The whole business plan was really sign on the dotted line and take the tax exemption.
Wow, that's not bad.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
So cool. It's like, and we riff a lot on federal tax strategies, but there's also, when you have the ability to look at local and even, state level and local opportunities, and you have the right resources, there's so much cool stuff out there. And, we haven't had chances to riff on things like low income, new market, historic tax credits. It's just endless. You'll never.
It's worth it going and reading about it. I came across a deal. I didn't invest in this one, but I loved what they were doing. It was in Indiana, and this was probably 5 or 6 years ago. I think it was in. I don't remember the city. Columbus, Ohio, I think it was. Anyway, they basically said if you put 50% of the purchase price of your property into renovations, in other words, you're doing a deep renovation, they would give you a 50% break on taxes.
Wow.
And there are programs out there as cities are trying to cope with the rising price of housing. Cities are becoming more and more innovative in their strategies too. And if you can find a partnership between, yourself and a local municipality, that could really, that could turn a non-deal into a great deal.
So here's something I think you'll really like. And, we've been talking a lot about solar, and we have some time to do this. And people are like, well, Trump doesn't want to do solar. He's more about oil and gas. And yeah, but, we still have some opportunities until like 2030 for most of the stuff we're doing. At least 2032. I'll have clear guidance on that. The bill was just released, so give me a break here. So around that time. But anyways.
It's 900 pages, right?
Yeah. So with the solar panel, not only are we getting credits, but we're getting 100% bonus. I mean, the credit reduces basis a little, but it's still really good. And here's a cool thing. And I don't know why more people aren't talking about this in the real estate space, but we had a client who found an opportunity to put solar panels on his short-term rentals. And he gets a 30% tax credit to pay for the panel from the U.S. government. He also is getting a 25% tax credit from the state of South Carolina. That means 55% of the solar panel is being paid for. Now, it reduces his basis by half of that, so approximately 27.5 Well, that's exactly 27.5 percent reduction in basis. So, around 70 to 73% of the asset is written off. 55% of it is paid for the government. Actually, I think on the federal side, so I should probably have a calculator out, but yeah, I think on the federal side, because it's 30%, you're going to write off 85% on the federal side. Um, but anyway, so you're writing off the majority of this asset in year one. You're getting 55% of it paid for by the federal and state government, and it's going to save him about $180,000 projected in energy costs. So you're reducing your costs and you're reducing your taxes all at the same time, and you're buying the asset over 25 years. So it's like you're not even feeling the payment of the asset. So there's all these neat things where you can stack on these state level credits on top of the federal, and it's mind boggling what is out there when you really get the right connections to see these opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what being, a lifelong learner in investing is. It's just keeping to hearing new strategies, learning from groups like yours, learning from the Alternative Investing Club, other clubs online. Education nowadays is out there if you go find it. And the more you invest, the more creative you can become in your investing. And I think it's a skill that this country really needs.
Yeah, and with AI, a lot can be learned with AI, but a lot of this is relationship based, and your ability, like you said, to evaluate the people and to think critically through these presentations and recognize that those projections may not be reliable, and say, where do I have to go deeper into my analysis, and also see if this makes sense based on my risk tolerance, my goals, et cetera, et cetera. So AI doesn't solve everything, and certainly these strategies.
What do you think of AI? I'm curious to get your take on it in taxes and investing.
I absolutely love it. I mean, we use AI for so many things. I'll use AI to talk through even concepts and tax concepts. So I've been thinking a lot lately about the ROI of paying Social Security taxes and at what thresholds does it make sense. And I've been having conversations with AI on that. It helps us out with our marketing. I mean, the AI, you can't ignore the power of AI and it as a thinking tool. Like I treat it as someone who I can have conversations with and make myself smarter and learn faster. And now, if you're looking at the OBBBA and trying to use AI, I'm warning you that the AI is going to pull from articles that were produced before the bill was released, and it's going to give you misinformation. So it's flawed. But we love AI for as a creative research assistant and a conversational resource. So I'm all about it.
Yeah, it really is a strategic thinker and a strategic planner. It's somebody, I use it all the time. And oftentimes when I get one answer from an AI, I will go stick it into a different AI in order to get its take. And oftentimes they may not necessarily agree. And that's one thing you have to realize is that these are not infallible, database systems that are recalling perfect statistics, but you can actually create strategies where you ask your question to one and then bounce it off another and then take it, come up with your own idea and submit it. And so it's really about, agentic AI where you've got, multiple AI actors and you're having conversations with them.
Yeah, I use AI also when I'm doing marketing, and I'm not going to find the buttons for an emoji. The AI is doing all the emojis for me these days. But yeah, it's really cool stuff, and you can't ignore it. I mean, it's just like for the folks that thought that internet was a fad and didn't put their businesses online, and they eventually had to come around. And then also with social media now with AI, you have to accept that this is the new norm. I feel bad for the children trying to learn in school where AI is just feeding them everything they need to know so easily. And but it's just the new norm, and I'm all for it. You got to embrace it.
Hey, Mark, there's one last blockbuster out there, or so I've been told. The Twitter account is hilarious. You got to follow it.
Okay.
That's a group that didn't get on the internet, and now there's one.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Cautionary tale. Absolutely. So, what I want to know from you is, what are some things? I know you're working on you have a new project you're working on. And by the way, as this may be relevant for you, R&D is fully deductible. You used to have to write off over 5 years, fully deductible. You might be in a very good tax bracket. But what are some big projects or concepts, or what are some things that are really getting you excited over the next year and couple of years among the many things you've explored in investment opportunities?
Well, like I said, I like the debt validation strategy. Commercial properties are starting to pick up more right now. We're getting more and more activity and velocity in that. Over the last 2 to 3 years, it's been, kind of a dead area. We had like an 85% drop in transaction rates, and it's starting to pick up again. And there are interesting deals out there, and so it's definitely something to look at but to be cautious about. I like, to a certain extent, I'm trying to focus all my energy on the club and just bringing in great speakers. And then when we find a speaker that we like, having the club invest with them. And honestly, that's where I'm focusing a lot of really conservative investments, and then just bringing in educators, and then some of them we invest with. And so, in what I'm going to say here is a little bit of a punt, and that is my strategy is to find as many interesting people as possible and then to cherry pick them. But I will say that commercial properties are doing better, and they're starting to pick up. Funds are still very popular, but I think that really planning your tax strategy is extremely important. It's going to become more important as time goes on. I think that our economy is definitely always kind of on the knife's edge, and it doesn't take much a black swan event to kind of push it over. And the municipalities, federal government, they're all in positions where we're either going to see increased inflation or we're going to see increased taxes. And so I think tax planning and becoming tax educated is a must for any investor. Yeah,
absolutely. And these tariffs, and these tax cuts, they all come with costs. By the way, I imagine you're going to find this. So they just made it so manufacturing buildings are 100% tax deductible.
I heard about that.
Some folks, I'm just waiting. You're going to find some folks syndicating those deals any day now.
Absolutely.
Any day now, there's going to be people jumping on that and finding ways to take advantage of it. But yeah, those are really great words of wisdom. And I know you've been through a lot and seen a lot of investments. And so what I would like, you can see it in the background of the screen right now. And I think your URL is alternativeinvestingclub.com, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
And you have some really cool content on there.
We've got really a ton of content up there. Yeah. And we have our free weekly Friday meeting, noon Pacific time every Friday.
Yeah, I think
just sign up and come.
Our audience is going to love this stuff. Like, they really find this stuff interesting. What do you have a call to action? Or I know we can go to alternativeinvestingclub.com. Anywhere else you might want to send?
I think that's my call to action. If you want to email me directly, my email is daniel@alternativeinvestingclub.com. I'm always open to email, but I think the call to action is just go to the website, sign up on the website, and attend the Friday meeting. We're a community that's all about education. Like I said, our community originally started at Intel as an Intel employee club, and we operated internally to Intel, only open to Intel employees for about 4 years. And then in the last 3 years, we've been open to the public. And so we've got a good group. We've got around 1,300 people in our group. And our Friday calls, our attendance has actually dropped a little bit here in the summer. We were getting 70 to 100 people on a call at the beginning of the year, and we're getting like 50 right now. But it's a good group. And we always have great speakers that are in there that are talking about different strategies every week.
Awesome. Well, you guys should definitely check that out. And it's always interesting seeing what Dan's working on. When I first met him and he was at Intel, it was really cool how he was bringing together, bring so much value and bring together so many people. So check that out. And of course, if you guys want to learn more from me and how holistic tax planning can be incorporated not only to alternative investing strategies, but all your sources of income, whether it's your business or your real estate or your stocks, et cetera, you can go to prosperalcpa.com/apply, and we will prepare for you an opportunity report, which will allow you to see a projection of how much we can save in taxes with our advanced strategies for free. You can also go to prosperalcpa.com/opportunity report. You'll get that free report. And if you're interested, you can see what that may cost to learn more about those opportunities. And you will learn things that you haven't seen anywhere else. All right, Dan, thank you so much for your time. Happy tax savings. And everybody keep in touch. We got more great info coming your way.